Hello, everyone. Welcome to the School of Heaven and Earth podcast. I'm Crystal,
And I'm Merlin.
and today we are talking a little bit about spiritual practice and ethics, morality, virtue, what makes somebody a quote unquote good person or a good human, and how that is definitely not one to one with spirituality, with spiritual power, or spiritual practice. Like, spiritual practice in and of itself is not going to make you a good person. This is a conversation that Matthew and I have pretty regularly. It's something that's come up in conversations in other spheres of our life in recent months, so we thought it would be a great thing to jump on and talk about today, particularly considering the political and social climate.
Yeah, questions of morality are very important right now. And as we're recording this, the moon is in the sign of Aquarius. It's about 12 hours before it's going to go full. So this is, about the full moon in Aquarius when we're recording this. The moon in Aquarius in general is a good placement for analyzing questions of morality, shoulds, obligations, duties, responsibilities, universals. So tied up with the symbolism of Aquarius is the question, how should we live? What should we do? What should all of humanity be engaging in? How should we all be engaging in so that we can benefit everybody? So full moon in Aquarius is a good time to have a conversation around these specific topics, around morality, ethics, and spirituality or spiritual practices' effect or lack thereof on morality too.
Yeah, for sure. And so today, the plant that we're bringing in, we're drinking some dandelion root. In the School of Heaven and Earth, we're presently dieting dandelion root, so we'll be journeying with dandelion tonight to overthrow our inner tyrant, right? Like our inner shoulds, our culturally imposed goods, right, that actually do not serve us, do not serve our hearts. And so dandelion is a fabulous way to reconnect with our gut instincts, right, with our essential selves, with our internal alchemical fires. So a lot of us know of dandelion as a liver and a detox support, right? So it's, got the bitter constituents that help to activate the internal fires, feed the internal fires, literally help to produce bile, right? And also feeds the stomach with prebiotics or inulin, right? That help restore the gut microbiome that is so important to helping us know ourselves, right? So dandelion is also a plant that is extremely resilient, right? Like, knows how to adapt to situations and bounce back, right? Like, the beautiful metaphor that we see so often is the dandelion growing up through concrete. Like, and that is definitely an internal strength that we all need to find right now. And it is an internal strength that spiritual practice can also give us, right? Like, spiritual practice helps us to be more resilient, to have more power, to be ourselves, right? And to judge and assess energetic environments and what we need to bring to those energetic environments. That in and of itself, of course, does not make you a good person, right? But it does make you a more powerful person, right? And that is not always a good thing, right? Like, if you have decided that you are going to pull yourself away from the collective, that you are going to isolate yourself, that you are only going to think about what is good for you and your loved ones, and charge ahead and steamroll other people, other intelligences, right? Then your spiritual practice is an unfortunate situation for this planet, right? And we see that with all of these, all of the various spiritual gurus that news stories have come out about, that, they're actually incredibly shitty people. And everybody's like, oh, how could that be? And it's like, oh, well, yeah. That person surrounded themselves with yes people, right? That person found a way to escape the consequences of their actions and poor behavior, right? They are continually having their ego fed, so that they were literally blinded, right, to anything that would have helped them to see that they need to change course. Right? Is there anything you want to say to?
I mean, people, I think, assume that because some guru, sage, seer, visionary, mystic, whatever, is doing hours and hours of spiritual practice a day, that by default they're going to be good people. And that's just not the case. You can do hours and hours and hours of meditation. You can be a total piece of shit. And likewise, you can never meditate for a second in your entire life and be an extremely compassionate person. And really, like what Crystal had said, is that the goal of meditation isn't necessarily always just to be a good person. It can be helpful for people who are trying to be, but really what meditation does is makes you more powerful, more present, more aware, more awake. And you can do a lot of good if you do those kinds of practices, but you can also do a lot of bad as well. And we've seen that so many times with extremely powerful people, around the world in different spiritual traditions, abusing that power, manipulating other people, especially manipulating young women, or getting like sexual abuse, sexual assault, especially, is just so common, unfortunately.
Yeah, thank you for saying that more simply than I just had.
I'm a distiller. I try and just make things very, very pithy. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I'm responding to this specific conversation. So we have the example of Bikram Shudri, right? Mm-hmm. And the hot yoga practice. And so I've been practicing hot yoga. I started when I was maybe 24. I'm 41, so very long time ago, and it was an extremely effective practice for me, physically, mentally, spiritually. I, with all of my fire, I would go into a hot room and I would literally have faces coming out of the walls as I came out of the opening back bend, and would literally just be tripping balls the whole time. I mean, stone sober. But this is a powerful practice for me. I used to walk with a hunch, and I got rid of my hunch. I had, I had a lot of physical issues. I was barely ever able to breathe through my nose, and I had already been doing yoga since I was 17, right? Like I already had like a pretty decent practice when I started doing hot yoga. So when the news started coming out about Bikram, I was like, oh my gosh, right? Like that was a huge hit for me, because this was a practice that I was practicing every single day, or even when I was living overseas, I was I sought out a practice when I was living in Lebanon, and was going there a couple of times a week. So I was quite dedicated. That was a huge hit. At first, I had to tell myself all kinds of stories about what was actually going on. I was like, okay, Bikram, he must just be playing the trickster, right? Like there must be a reason, that some kind of teaching behind this. And eventually I came to my senses. I was like, oh no, he just was a young man from India who got thrown into Hollywood, got handed all of this power, and power does what power does when there isn't actual accountability. And even though he was this incredible healer and did have a lot of wisdom, it was still just too tempting, right? Just too ripe of an environment for exploitation.
Yeah.
Right.
And I see I see a lot too, where people a guru, a spiritual authority, totally misbehaves, and then the students try and justify it, or they say well, what's he trying? Someone who meditates a lot is treating you like dirt and just being a total asshole, and then you say well, what are they trying to teach me by this? What are they're enlightened, so this is just these are hard lessons for me. Blah 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 blah. I see that kind of justification all the time, and chances are, if they're acting like an asshole, then they're probably just an asshole.
Just being an asshole,
and that's it. And you can be an asshole and be reach a very, very high level of spiritual power. You can those are possible. You don't need to be a good person in order to become spiritually powerful, which is part of the reason why a lot of these practices need to be protected.
Yeah, precisely. And so even with in the more and more comes out, right, about the Tibetan tradition. So we know, like,
Right,
the scandals with Chogyam Trungpa,
and the coke. Wasn't there a lot of cocaine going on?
I think there was a lot of things
there were a lot of things going on. Yeah.
But even the Tibetan tradition in general, right? Like, it blew my mind when I started hearing. Like, this was something that I had heard from a Catholic priest who is also an exorcist in the past, who also happened to be a really shitty person, which we don't need to get into, or not going to get into. But so we used to have arguments. And he would talk about how, like, in Tibet, there was slavery, right? And that, slaves in these monasteries were regularly beaten and horribly abused. And then you told me...
They cut their feet off of slaves sometimes.
Why would they... You told me a
for
specific reason.
For different reasons. I don't want to get into it a whole lot, but
okay.
and that's a essentially a feudalistic society. That's in many ways, and so again, just because you're the high exalted lama, blah 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 incarnation of whatever bodhisattva, doesn't mean that if you get a bunch of power, you're not going to try and cut people's feet off.
Yeah. So what's the purpose, right? So if a spiritual practice doesn't make you a good person, right? It's like, what's the purpose of a spiritual practice? Why do we dedicate a couple of hours every day to engaging in spiritual practice? It's like, is it just for power, right? For me, absolutely not, right? It's to make you more of yourself, right? It's to feed you more of your own essence and your own purpose in why you're here, right? And if it's done in a balanced way, if it's done in a way that you are allowing yourself to feel and respond to your own energy, then it's going to give you the resilience that you need in order to counteract some of the ways that the world wants to manipulate you, or that other beings want to manipulate you. Mm-hmm. Would you say that that's accurate, or what would you add to why?
That's a big part of it. I think first of all, I think for people who do the kind of work that Crystal and I do, spiritual practice is necessary in the same way that a carpenter is going to need to lift weights, or a woodworker is going to need to do physical exercise in order to do their job. There's something of that going on for us. For people like us, where a large portion of our job involves reading energies and listening to spirit, you need to do spiritual practice in order to open yourself up to that, so that you can receive those messages.
Yeah, that's
a big part of it for me. There is also, this is like kind of closely related to just spiritual power, but it has a particular end in mind. And then there's the other elements of it too. Generally, spiritual practice does make you more peaceful and more content, and it does make life easier. There is I don't want to say hedonistic, but an Epicurean quality, where it's part of living the good life, and it makes things more enjoyable. So those are the two big reasons to do spiritual practice, right off the bat. Yeah.
And the whole becoming a god thing.
And the whole, and immortality, of course,
which is part of power, but just in...
Yeah, the preparation for death, controlled rebirth, knowing that, getting where you need to go after you die, all that also super important too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot.
There's lots of reasons.
There's a lot of reasons, to
do spiritual practice.
To engage in spiritual practice. But it is also extremely important to be a good person.
Yes. And I'll add to this that while just meditating a bunch won't necessarily make you an ethical, moral, good person, if you are also engaging in practices that are designed to make you a good person, i.e. just doing things that good people would do, then meditation can help. It can help move that in the right direction. But you also have to be doing the things that make you a good person. And generally, in my opinion, for those of you listening to this, watching this, and asking, well, how do you become a good person? Do the things that good people do. Be kind to other people. Practice kindness. Practice loving others. That's how you do that. And if you meditate and you also do that, then it can help it go along a little bit faster.
And of course, there is loving kindness meditation, which I absolutely love. Right, my wellness center that I ran in Pittsburgh was called Metta, which is a form of love, the loving kindness. Right, and loving kindness meditation, the one where you're envisioning people being blissfully happy, doing things that they love, sending that from to people that you don't know, to people that you love and care about, and also to people that you really dislike, and to yourself, right? So practicing strengthening that love muscle, I do think that can definitely help, but there are, as evidenced by the Tibetan examples, right, and other Indian gurus who clearly have engaged in those practices, that is not enough to be a good person. That strengthens the muscle. It's like you're capable, you have the capacity to be a good, loving, and kind person. But that doesn't mean that you're strengthening the hands, the bones, right, the mind and the nervous system to react in a loving and a kind way to other people. But there's also another issue here that I wanted us to discuss, especially with the our philosopher over here, is what do we mean by a good person, right? Because there are different definitions culturally. Occasionally there are similarities, and we're going to get to some of those universal truths, but different people have different definitions of what being a good and kind or nice person is.
Yeah, without getting too into there's been literally thousands of books that have talked about what the word good means.
And maybe we can recommend some of those below. We will, in fact.
Yeah. I mean, generally, I think you can divide up opinions about ethics into two camps. There's the people that say that ethics is a matter of right and wrong actions. Call that like the 10 Commandments theories, of where say like these things are good things to do, these things are bad things to do. And then there is the people who are called virtue theorists, which is more the camp that I fall into, whereas being a good person involves engaging in particular virtues and strengthening particular virtues, such as kindness, temperance, patience, and so on. And so under that model, there's no list of right and wrong actions per se. What the right and wrong actions are so heavily situated into context and so case dependent. So this is the classic example of like, well, lying is wrong, but if you're, hiding people from the Nazis in World War II or ICE today, and you're hiding people, and then they come at the door, and then you lie to ICE or you lie to the Nazis, is that a wrong thing to do? Absolutely not. That is the right thing to do.
It's the only thing to do.
It's the only thing to do. So you should lie in particular contexts. Lying is moral in some contexts, so you can't say that lying is universally wrong. The way to figure out what the right and wrong thing to do in the moment is by cultivating virtue. That cultivating virtue gives you the discernment to know how to behave in the moment. It's the simplest way that I can put it. Great book on virtue and cultivating virtue is Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics. It's great. It served as the foundation for ethical theory within the West, outside of like Judeo-Christian Ten Commandments ideology for 1,500 years, 2,000 years, a long time. It's very, very important.
There's nothing virtuous, in my opinion, and I will fight anyone who argues there's nothing virtuous about following law. There is nothing good about following law.
Yeah.
Laws, generally, being a law-abiding citizen is being an obedient citizen, is being a submissive citizen, is being an unthinking citizen. And that is the opposite. It's literally the opposite of the creation of a virtuous, moral citizen.
Yeah.
Being law-abiding is sacrificing yourself, right? It's sacrificing yourself to the collective. It's like it's a deep Saturnian shadow, right? Like a good person a really good person, a very virtuous person, is going to combat and make you question laws, is going to be pushing the people, fighting against the people, putting laws in place, especially when they actually are going against the collective good. So in this day and age, when our laws are literally set up to only benefit a very small portion of the population, and is in fact degrading all life on earth, all good and virtuous people have a responsibility to tear down these laws and structures. Right, in my opinion. And I do believe spiritual practice helps to give us the strength, the energy, the clarity, and the grounding and the support of our invisible communities, right, to take these actions, to tear down these laws, and to help people who think for some reason that being law abiding, whether that's the 10 Commandments or, you know, US law or state law, or, you know, whatever trendy Instagram codes of ethics are going around, like that, we need to be working to abolish those, right? Just like whatever, like whatever's trendy in the media or social media is the you know, like unquestioning is the good. Right? Like that social media is the new place where groupthink is happening. Yeah. Right? And like groupthink can become a good, right? But it's our responsibility, it's every human's responsibility to constantly be critically thinking and adapting, becoming more resilient, recognizing like I have my own moral compass. I drink my dandelion. I can listen to my own gut instincts. I can feel where my own energy is flowing in relation in the situation, and I know the right action to take, right? And I have the courage, I have the virtue, right, to do that, even if it might affect myself, even if it might affect me negatively.
Yeah. Think of the development of virtue as ways to hone and fine-tune that moral compass. So you know what to do. And it's not based off of the 10 Commandments or what the law tells you to do or any kind of top-down universal absolutes about this is the good thing to do, this is the wrong thing to do, trust us. You attune to your own heart. And you practice compassion. You do that in the moment with people, living in a particular way. And that's how you learn how to do the right thing.
And so some of the universals for what is good and what makes a good person, right? That's found in ancient folklore, that's found in myth, that's found, you know, all over the world, right? Like one of the main ones, do unto others as you would have done unto yourself, right? They're all come down to, you know, you are another me. We are connected. It's the recognition that what happens to somebody else is something that could very well happen to you. So stop it from happening to somebody else, right? And one of those greater spiritual truths that distills down to is that you are in fact everybody else. You are this planet, right? Whatever happens to this planet is happening to you. Whatever happens to your neighbor is happening to you, right? And if you're doing spiritual practice that is actually aligned with your own soul, right? Like if you're doing it for you and not just because somebody's telling you to, and, you know, not just in a rote way, you begin to feel that more and more keenly, that you are your entire ecosystem. You feel it like a fucking stab in the chest, you know, when your neighbor gets hurt, when you see somebody else suffering, you feel it because you have done the work of expanding your own field of influence, right? You are shining your soul. You have become more ensouled. You are shining more of your own innate light out into the world. So you feel it. It comes back to you. You also have the strength and the resources to rebound from that, but you feel it. right? So that code, which is actually a really good one, do unto others as you would have done unto yourself, love your neighbor as you would love yourself, which we see in traditions all over the world, or just in those greetings, like you are another me, that is so universal in indigenous societies. It's like that's what it comes back to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think we'll wrap it up there. Just give people to think of. Just know, you can't shortcut being a kind, compassionate person by meditating a bunch. It's basically it. I mean, you can't. It's not going to get you there.
Or doing a lot of yoga, or a lot of mantras,
exactly.
or a lot of kundalini.
Yeah.
From.
Just because you know secret mantras or the secret names of God or whatever doesn't mean that you're a good person.
Or even if you can astral project to the dark side of the moon,
It means you've got
it's
skill.
It's a skill. It's like, good for you, brother.
I've known a lot of skilled assholes.
Yeah, but there are a lot of skilled assholes, right? Which is why there's just as many sinister yogis and dark brujos and
So and then don't assume that just because someone has reached a high level that they are a good person and that they have your best interests in mind, and don't make excuses for them if they're being a dick.
Yes.
That's it.
Including us.
Call us out if you see issues.
We love being held accountable.
Yeah.
Because it keeps us on our path. Right? We don't have to take anybody else's projections on either. Like we can hear you and make our own decisions about how to respond. Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for listening, everybody. Like, comment, share if you dig what we have to say, and let us know in the comments what you think about being a good person. What are some ways that you define being a good person? What are some of the virtues that you hold really dearly, and what are some of the ways that you strengthen your virtue muscles? Bye, everybody.